Gold viewers from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, a licensed midwife and MC for Gold Learning. And I'm chatting today with Dr. Jodi Hall about her upcoming presentation titled Unpacking the Concept of Holding Space Beyond Rhetoric Towards Action in Supporting Survivors of Trauma in the Childbearing Years. Welcome, Jodi.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you with us today and take time and chat with me here. So let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional journey and how you got interested in the topic.
My professional journey is quite eclectic. I come from a background in women's studies and sociology. I've spent time as a frontline worker with women and children experiencing abuse in a shelter setting and also in a community setting. And I've been attending births actively as a doula since 1996. And so really it's bringing together all of those professional journeys into this presentation around holding space. I think I first became interested in the concept of holding space as I started to recognize that it was being used so casually, and it was something that I think that we've come to take for granted. So this concept of holding space is something that we use to frame how we enter into spaces with our clients, often clients who are suffering or who are experiencing really challenging or difficult circumstances. And so as it was being used really casually and commonly, I thought we need to think a little bit more critically, or at least trouble the idea of safe space more than I saw happening around me, or this concept of holding space. I started to think about, how does this concept actually get enacted? So when I say that I'm holding space, is that the same thing as someone else? Are there some assumptions that we bring into our work with our clients that encapsulates what we mean by holding space? And so really this presentation provided me with the opportunity to think more deeply about my own assumptions about what I do in spaces with clients, and also inviting others who do this work into that conversation with me.
Yeah, and you brought up a really interesting point in your answer right there that you said we're using holding space quite casually and without really thinking deeper. And this is a very, you brought up a very good point. It feels like, and I don't know if you agree with that, we hear that expression holding space now everywhere. It
Uh,
pops up in all kinds of contexts for birth, for counseling in dealing with trauma, dealing with all kinds of situations. And tell me, is this a new something new, or have we been doing this before? What can you tell us here?
the concept of holding space as a term, and that's what I mean by rhetoric, as a way of understanding this act of being in the presence of others as a listener and as centering their process and their challenges or their stories, isn't necessarily, that's the part that's new, but the practice of it is informed by many traditions. So whether we look at nursing care, palliative care, grief and loss counseling, if we look at Indigenous ceremony and what it means to sit and listen and be fully present for somebody else, for whether it's another individual, a family, or community, it certainly is a new way of thinking about some of the best ways that we have of being with others. And I'm not claiming that this is a new concept, but that's what I want to connect it with, is that deep, rich history, and understand it better, understand it beyond just going, oh yeah, I'm holding space in a really flippant way. There's a really important essence to the work of holding space with someone else.
Wonderful. That sounds very interesting. Now going into the presentation a little deeper, but without giving too much away, what are you hoping that our listeners will take away from this presentation?
Given that we have such a limited time, I'm just going to be able to briefly scratch the surface of what I mean by thinking critically about holding space, hoping that participants will walk away thinking a little bit more critically about their own practice. In particular, if they're working with people who they believe have experienced or are experiencing trauma, that they learn just how significant and important it is to be in those spaces in a way that centers the needs of the other.
Well, thank you so much, Jody, for spending time with me here today and chatting with me about this very important topic. And Jody's presentation, Unpacking the Concept of Holding Space Beyond Rhetoric Towards Action in Supporting Survivors of Trauma in the Childbearing Years, is part of the Trauma Informed Care Lecture Pad. And you can find more about this presentation, more information about this presentation and about other presentations in the lecture pack by going to goldperinatal.com. Thank you again, Jody, for your time with us here, and bye-bye for now.